Welcome back to Skyrider Limited. Today on Kite Bag Tour, we're talking about structured kites. So, like I said, welcome back to Skyrider Limited. I am Jesse, and today on Kite Bag Tour, we are diving into more single line kites. And I said in the open that they were going to be structured kites, and what that means here is kites with unique structure, because most kites have some kind of structure, whether it's wood or fiberglass or carbon. But these are kites with novel construction and structural concepts. Things like lots of tension or custom fittings, um, and they're all pretty wonderful. Sort of takes on single line kites with very unique shapes that I'm really excited to share with you. This first kite is actually by a manufacturer that's probably best known for his sport kite. So if you stay right there, I'm going to go grab the first kite and move way back from the camera because it is big. So most people know Marc Ricketts and Guildworks from the Synergy Deca series of quadline kites. The original Deca, the 6, the 0, which also got called the Great Deca, the 1, a number of works in tie-dye, and he also had the 333 three-line sport kite. But later in Marc's run in kites, he would get into building some single line kites. So Marc, as I recall, was trained as a structural engineer and was fascinated with the concept of tensegral design, um, structures that can only exist through dependent tension. Um, this is a great example of Marc's sort of expression of that design concept in single line. This is one of his 10 cell truss kites. So each one of these cells are completely separate sails, and then they are held out by a vertical spine and two spreaders. And the spreaders are a bow, a lot like the decas used across their back. Um, and then the spines are joined vertically with pieces of oversized wrapped carbon, and just a press fit on the end caps. As a result, these could actually be expanded and shrunk through a number of different configurations and a number of different cell numbers. He also built single cell kites with a tail off the bottom, um, as well. They're wonderful kites. They're very cool in the air because they sort of defy physics through their structure, and everything is in a great deal of tension. They're quite the interesting experience to assemble because you constantly feel like something is about to snap. That's a remarkable kite and beautiful piece of construction. Marc had some great people working with him that were exceptionally talented sewers. But in general, just the ingenuity involved is what's the most fabulous part of the kite. Um, None of the parts individually are particularly um, incredible, but the way Marc combined them to make such a unique shape was so cool. I mean, at a passing glance, the kite has a resemblance to like a tetrahedron. I'll put a picture up here of like an Alexander Graham Bell tetrahedron kite, which has been a popular shape for a very long time. But Marc took it to an engineering place that really hadn't been done before or since. It's a really, really cool kite, and I'm really happy we still have one. Um, we were sponsored by Guildworks in the early 90s flying the quad line kites, and Marc made my dad a number of single line kites. This is the last one that we still have in the collection. We've passed a number of them on over the years. So I'm really glad that we still have this one around because they are very special, and you don't see them very often. Marc moved on out of kites into doing structural tents and awnings and things for music festivals and stuff like that. He's still working in that field, but he's closed down his kite operations a number of years ago. Um, so that these kites survive is pretty cool. So sit tight, and we're gonna go find another kite to look at. So through the magic passage of time, the driveway looks a little bit different now. I had some errands to run, so I took a quick break between our first kite and our next batch. But if you look behind me here, you'll see some things hiding in the corner here, and we'll talk about those. So the next batch is a group of 4 kites that were designed by a kite artist from, I think he was from Germany, whose name is Fridolin Anders. So Fridolin designed a number of very interestingly engineered kites, again, sticking with our theme of creative structures, some of which would go on to be produced under license and distributed with level 1 sport kites. So the first one I'm going to grab here is one of my 2 favorites. You'll spot some of my favorite Ricketts colors in this kite. This is Fridolin's Mandala. So it is a series of 3 sprung solid carbon rings that hold out a sail that is 3 integrated disc panels with an open center. It was a really good flyer. He used to fly them in kind of flocks, and this one in particular in charcoal, ruben, mango, orange, gold, yellow, and red. And I believe that's berry there as well. It's just a wonderful use of color. A lot like what you would see from Robert Brasington's color use as well, which, some of my favorite Ricketts colors in here, and sadly, many of them discontinued. So this one was probably one of his simpler shapes. We're going to jump to the next one where things get a little more complicated, and that'll be the bobber. So the bobber, put this down real quick. So the bobber is over here. Fish that out. So the bobber here was a solid carbon sprung ring around the outside with an inflatable fishing bobber shape that was suspended on the middle here. Again, just sort of novel structure, very simple design with all just a sprung carbon ring, but just wonderful presence from that giant Ricketts disc. This one is a production bobber from level 1's distribution. There was an earlier version of the kite which had more of a pyramid shape than the 3 round sections that make up the bobber on each side on this version of the kite. Again, just a really cool flyer and just really great, bright, big shapes with, the novel use of the suspended inflatable in the middle and the disc generating lift on this kite. The next one, so a lot of his kites started like this with these large rings. The next kite uses a partial ring. So this is a Fridolin Anders ship. So this one, this was a actual Fridolin production, not a licensed production kite. Flew kind of in that position, and has a sprung ring. You can see that ring goes all the way around, which also holds this ring and the ship's sort of body open. And then the keel, which is made up of 6 mil solid carbon, and then a very novel reducer piece out of aluminum here, which springs to an FSD fitting on the other end of the ring there. And then an XL knock and a tension line on the opposite end gives it its bow shape and stability. So this was sort of his next phase of shapes. And you can see very big, but very light, very, very nice flyers. Nice and stable. And just a really, really pretty shape in the sky. But Fridolin wasn't done with that partial ring shape. He came up with another shape of kite using that partial ring. And this one is probably the most novel creation of the bunch. This is the buzzsaw. Let me see how I'm going to hold this up for you guys. So there's the buzzsaw right there. So Cool things about the Buzzsaw is obviously its kinetic shape in the middle here. Again, beautiful color choices with berry, Reuben, orange, gold. Actually, that's mango, orange, gold, and yellow. Um, and what was really cool about this is so this ring hooks into these angle fittings here, and you can't see them because the pinwheel is on right now. But just inside here are a pair of cartridge bearings, one on each side, that this actually rests on and allows it to spin so smoothly. And in the correct position, assembled correctly, the pinwheel actually generates additional lift that helps pick the kite up. None of them were terribly steep flyers, as we recall, but they flew very well, very stable, and were just so cool to look at in flight with the pinwheel moving or the bobber. The mandala was just nice and stable and really, really pretty. Um, so those are Fridolin's large kites. We also have a flock somewhere of what at least I remember them being called potato chips, and they kind of needed a little bit of a lifter help. They were sort of fighter kite sized, sprung microcarbon around the rim that sort of shaped them up, and they would kind of flock around a central line being hauled up by a lifter. Um, I think he might have also been responsible for a kite we had called the beer crate, which was, as its name suggests, in the shape of a glass bottle beer crate. And the design was done as part of a promotion that he was commissioned to do for a brewery over in Europe. We had one of the sections. I don't think we have it anymore. I think that kite got passed on. So those are the Fridolins. I have one more kite and one more artist to show you with probably the most creative use of fittings and construction mediums of the bunch today. So sit tight, and we're going to grab one last kite. So you can probably tell by the height of the sun behind me that some more time has passed getting the Fridolins broken down, and putting this next kite together takes a little bit of time. This next kite is probably the most incredible piece of kite structural engineering I've ever seen. From its custom fittings and use of thread wrapping for stops and for attachment points to fishing rod eyelets as a means of attaching tension lines. So this is a box kite by Bobby Stanfield. Bobby is a fairly prolific cellular kite artist. I think he won the Grand Champion, kite builder Grand Champion at the AKA convention a couple of times. The kite is almost perfect right now. It took us a fair bit of time to remember how to assemble it, to be honest. And the one thing that I do need to repair is the stitching on the sail that holds the nose of the sail to the center spine. Right now, that's a little bit of painter's tape, just holding it for today so we can see it. Unfortunately, I thought it was holding together, and as we were putting it together, we discovered that it's not quite as happy as I thought it was. So for the kite's protection, there's a small bit of painter's tape in there, which you'll see here. So this is the Stanfield box. I always thought it looked something of a starship. It's absolutely stunning. So this is the back of the kite, nose up. I'll back away so we get all of it in picture. There's the underside, so it would have flown kind of in that configuration there. The kite is one of 4 of this design, so Bobby didn't produce for production at all that I'm aware of. As I've done my research on it, my understanding is 2 of them ended up on the East Coast, 2 on the West Coast. If the other 3 are out there and happen to see this video, I would absolutely love to connect and to get all of these together again. They're beautiful kites, and I would love to see them all in the same place again. I think that would be really wonderful. So we got this kite in 1997 at the Wildwood AKA convention. It was bucketing rain, and which chased us in off the flying field to the fly market. And Bobby was there with this one and one other. And my dad was absolutely in love with it. And wasn't sure he wanted to spend what Bobby was asking, but my mother, who was with us, basically told him to go get the kite, and I'm so glad he did because of all of the art kites we have. This is in my probably top two or three favorites. Um, I love the structure and the construction. I'm going to bring this closer to the camera so you can see these amazing fittings that Bobby engineered, and the thread wrapped stops. And there are those fishing rod eyelets I was talking about. The twist, thumb screw stops that tension all the points on the sail. It's amazing. The tail is actually a separate section. You can see here it joins with those thumb screws again as well. Um, and it's a beautiful piece of work, all framed in a via pultruded carbon, and just such a novel piece of engineering. Um, and for reference, the kite and I are on the same ground. I'm 5'8", and it towers above me here. I mean, here, let me back all the way up so you can see it here in frame. It's just a beautiful large cellular kite. And again, just such a wonderful design and so novel in, the concept of construction. I'm gonna try and point it at you here so you can see like the crosses through it and the big back spreaders and all the sections and the wingtips, held up in tension here on these articulated fittings. Um, but then beyond that, like the stitching is immaculate. He uses this beautifully tight straight stitch. Um, every panel is pinstriped. The pass throughs for all the framing are pinstriped. Um, it's just a remarkable piece of kite building and engineering, and what I am probably of all the kites here the most excited to see fly again because it's just stunning. So that's today's kite bag tour. I hope you enjoyed these kites, the novel construction and structure, and next time on Kite Bag Tour, I think we're probably going to still be doing single line kites, but we're going to be taking a stroll back to my dad's early collection of single line kites and maybe even a few things local to me here in New England. As always, thank you for watching and liking and subscribing and sharing, and we will see you out there, Skyrider.